The French Air and Space Force is the air and space force of the French Armed Forces. It was formed in 1909 as the Service Aéronautique, a service arm of the French Army, and then made an independent military arm in 1934, becoming the French Air Force. On the 24th of July 2020, it assumed its current name, the French Air and Space Force. The number of aircraft in service with the French Air and Space Force varies depending on the source. However, sources from the French Ministry of Defense give a figure of 658 aircraft in 2014. The French Air and Space Force has 225 combat aircraft in service, with the majority being 117 Dassault Mirage 2000 and 108 Dassault Rafale. As of early 2017, the French Air and Space Force employs a total of 41,160 regular personnel. The reserve element of the Air and Space Force consisted of 5,187 personnel of the operational reserve. The Chief of Staff of the French Air and Space Force is a direct subordinate of the Chief of the Defense Staff. The founding of the Service Aéronautique began in 1909, when the French War Minister approved the purchase of a Wright biplane. The following year, another Wright biplane, a Blériot, and 2 Farmans were added to the loan acquisition. On the 22nd of October 1910, General Pierre Roch was appointed Inspector General of what was becoming referred to as the Cinquième Army, or Fifth Service. In March 1912, the French Parliament enacted legislation to establish the air arm. It was projected to consist of 3 distinct branches based on aircraft missions: reconnaissance, bombing, or countering other aircraft. France was one of the first states to start building aircraft. At the beginning of World War I, France had a total of 148 planes and 15 airships. In August 1914, as France entered World War I, French air power consisted of 24 escadrilles supporting ground forces, including 3 squadrons assigned to cavalry units. By the 8th of October, expansion to 65 escadrilles was being planned. By December, the plans called for 70 new squadrons. Meanwhile, even as procurement efforts scaled up, inventive airmen were trying to use various light weapons against opposing airplanes. Roland Garros invented a crude method of firing a machine gun through the propeller arc by cladding his propeller with metal wedges deflecting any errant bullets. After destroying 3 German airplanes, Garros came down behind enemy lines on the 18th of April 1915. His secret weapon was thus exposed, and Anthony Fokker came up with the synchronization gear that by July 1, 1915, that turned airplanes into flying gun platforms on the 21st of February 1916. The Verdun offensive began. New weapons demand new tactics. Commandant Charles de Triconet de Rose was the original French pilot. Having learned to fly in March 1911, this experienced flyer was given a free hand to select pilots and airplanes for a new unit tasked with keeping German observation craft from over the French lines. The ad hoc unit commandeered all available Morane Sauniers and Nieuport 11s, as well as the 15 best pilots regardless of posting. This ad hoc unit patrolling the skies over Verdun was the first French groupement, the Chassé. The groupment was successful despite Triconet's death in a mishap. Under the leadership of new commander Captain Auguste de Reverand, such flying aces as Georges Guynemer, Charles Nungesser, and Albert Dulin began their careers. Encouraged by the success of their original groupment, the French massed several escadrilles for the Battle of the Somme. The burgeoning French aircraft inventory afforded the formation of Groupement de Combat de la Somme, under Captain Félix Brocard. The groupement was formed on 1 July 1916 with a posting of 4 Nieuport escadrilles. Escadrilles N.3, N.26, 73, and N.103. 3 other squadrons, escadrilles 37, N.62, and N.65, were temporarily attached at various times. On 19 October 1916, 3 fixed groups de combat were established, each to consist of 4 escadrilles, numbered 11, 12, and 13. They were only the first 3 groupments. During March 1917, Group the Combat 14 and Group the Combat 15 were formed. Again, each new group was assigned 4 Nieuport fighter squadrons. Again, each was sent to support a different French field army. On the 10th of January 1918, Group the Combat 16 was formed from 4 SPAD escadrilles. In February, 5 more Group the Combats were founded from SPAD squadrons. Groups the Combats number 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21. The various Nieuport models were now being phased out as the new SPADs filled the inventories of the French. With the group's success, the French were encouraged to amass air power into still larger tactical units. On the 4th of February 1918, Escadre de Combat No. 1 was created out of Group the Combat 15, Group the Combat 18, and Group the Combat 19. It was followed by Escadre de Combat No. 2, formed on the 27th from Group the Combat 11, Group the Combat 13, and Group the Combat 17. Each group would be stocked with 72 fighters. The escadres were not the end of the